talk to you. But I want to talk to you about small beginnings, small beginnings. And so when I say small beginnings, most of us, we associate small beginnings with a lack of resources. We associate small beginnings with lots of obstacles. We associate small beginnings with lots of frustration. We associate small beginnings. So oftentimes when you're sort of running your business, your household, your family, all in one little teeny space, right? And maybe you have to really have your little own makeshift, and maybe you're the receptionist, you're the businessman, you're the businesswoman, and you're sort of making everything happen on your own. And oftentimes, sometimes when you're in the middle of those small beginnings, you can become very frustrated. As a matter of fact, you can even consider giving up at times. You actually consider and you entertain the idea of maybe throwing in the towel, because you start finding yourself making comparisons. You start looking at where you are right now in your business, or you start looking at where you are right now in your career, or you start thinking about where you are right now in your skill set. Maybe perhaps you have a desire to become a speaker, to become a coach, to maybe become an author, or maybe a musician, whatever it might be. You start to look at where you are right now and where your skill sets are, and then you start comparing yourself to people who are completely knocking it out the box. And then so what happens is now you start to second guess yourself. You really start to doubt, and you really start to wonder if you can make those things happen. But I tell you, there's a verse and it says, never despise the days of small beginnings. And I want to share that with you, because here's what I know, that many of you are starting off small right now. But I know, here's what I know that I know that I know. If you're willing to continue to put in the work, if you don't just focus on the obstacles right now, if you're not just focused on the circumstances that are going on right now, I can assure you that this very small beginning can end up being a very, very big ending. And so I want to encourage you right now to keep you from throwing in the towel during those small beginnings. And I know it's one of those things that many of us have entertained and maybe even thought about, right? You wanted to start the business and you went ahead, you were all excited. You went to the seminar or the workshop, you picked up a book, or you tuned in for a webinar or live stream or something. You sat in for a presentation, you got all excited, and you started your business. And you thought for sure the business was going to take off. You thought you were going to get customers and clients. You thought in a matter of just months, you were going to get some really big checks and so forth. And now you've been in the business now maybe 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. And when you're looking at your checks, number one, it's not reflective of where you thought you would want to be. And not only that, when you just look around at the circumstances, maybe you don't have a very large team if you're in a direct sales business. Maybe perhaps you're an entrepreneur, and your office is pretty much still in a very small square footage. Your office also happens to be your closet, or your office also happens to be a section of your living room, or your office also happens to be in your car in the back seat. I mean, I don't know what those small beginnings look like, but sometimes when you're really early on and you're trying to get something off the ground, you can start to look at those small beginnings and you can become a little resentful. You can start to become really, in many ways, distracted and discouraged, and start to believe that maybe perhaps, you know what, this is not going to work. But I want to remind you that oftentimes many great things started off with very small beginnings. And I'm going to share something with you. And one of the individuals that I want to share with you, he goes by the name of Jack Ma. And his name is, he really has a different name, but he understands that a lot of people, one of his good friends decided to call him Jack because it was so hard to say his name. And because he's originally from China, and he has a name that was a little difficult for his friends to pronounce because his friends were American. And so one of his friends said, hey, we'll just call you Jack. Well, for those of you who've never heard of Jack, Jack happens to be the richest man in China. He is the absolute richest man in China, and his estimated net worth is about $24 billion. And I'm going to say that again. His estimated net worth is about $24 billion. This man is the gentleman who's responsible for the company that many of you have maybe heard of, a company by the name of Alibaba, right? Where you can basically go on there and buy virtually anything on Alibaba. Well, let me just tell you what most people don't know. When Jack decided to first get into business, it was himself, his wife, and a good friend of his. And literally between the three of them, they went around and they asked and they scraped up and they talked to people and they asked for loans. And between the three of them, himself, his wife, and his friend, all of them, they were able to scrape up a whopping $20,000. And so literally they started off with $20,000. That's the amount of money he had to go ahead and start his very first business. Now, it's easy for somebody right now to look at the ending, right? To say, wait a second, this is the richest man, literally the richest man in China. He is the first man from China that was actually had the luxury of being on the front of Forbes magazine. He is also has an estimated net worth of $24 billion. And so it's easy to look at this massive thing, this massive success that this man has created, but then lose sight of the very early beginning stage, those humble beginnings when he was trying to figure things out, those humble beginnings where between the three of them, the most that they could raise was a whopping $20,000. And so I say that to you to make you understand this, that you have no idea the seed that you're working on right now, this seed that you've been planting, this seed that you've been watering, this goal, this vision, this business that you've been watering, this small beginning, this little teeny oak seed that you've been watering of a dream that you have no idea as to how big it can get. You have no idea as to the level in which you can actually scale it. Now, some of you who are tuning in right now, maybe perhaps you've heard of a gentleman by the name of Tyler Perry. Yeah, you definitely heard of him, right? This guy is literally has taken over and literally turned the model over in Hollywood. Literally, he's a playwright writer, he's a producer, he's a director, he's an actor, he's a songwriter, and literally back in 2011, he was actually featured in Forbes magazine and considered the highest paid man in 2011 in entertainment, because in 1 year, he made about $130 million in one single year. Now, it's easy to look at the end product, right? The Tyler Perry that we know today. But see, most of us don't think about the Tyler Perry who scraped up a little bit of his tax returns and scraped up all his money and started off with a little $12,000 that he got from tax return and money he saved. And he was putting on the same play. And in one weekend, he thought a couple of thousand people were going to show up for that play. And only 30 people showed up. And the play absolutely bombed. And it bombed so bad, and he didn't have any money, that he was actually sleeping in the Geo Metro. Now, I don't know if you know what a Geo Metro is, a very small vehicle. And I don't know if you know that Tyler Perry is about 6'5", all right? So you have a man that's 6'5" who's sleeping in a Geo Metro, and you want to talk about small beginnings. He's sleeping in the Geo Metro, just holding on to the dream. The dream that he had to get that play off the ground. The dream that he would go 1 year and it failed. The second year it failed. Third year it failed. Fourth year it failed. Fifth year it failed. Sixth year it failed. And literally he would go over and over and over and over again. And after 7 years of pounding the pavement, 7 years of this play absolutely bombing, 7 years of people telling him, why don't you just get out there and go get a job, man? This is not going to work out. That he was willing to embrace the small beginnings, that even though his situation, even though he was in that little Geo Metro, that he was willing to hold on to his big dream, his big goal. And so here's what I say to you right now, that it's easy for you to look at the circumstances and start to look at your bank account, or maybe look around and look at people's highlight reels on social media and start trying to convince yourself that you don't necessarily have what it takes to take your life to the next level, that you don't have what it takes to have a breakthrough in your business, that you don't have what it takes to be able to step into your greatness and literally be able to live from a place and actually have a career that's in alignment with your gifting and your calling. It's easy when you're in the middle of those small beginnings to start counting yourself out. But I want to remind you, like Jack, and I want to also remind you, like Tyler Perry, that literally that you can't underestimate these very small beginnings. And so I'm telling you, I've watched small beginnings firsthand. I mean, some of you know, and I've shared the story. I mean, my mom came here from literally the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. My mom came from Haiti to the United States, and when she came here, she literally had less than $150 in her pockets, less than $150. But she came here in pursuit of a better life. She came here really hoping to, at some point, to be able to realize the American dream. And when she first came to Florida, one of her first jobs, she had a cousin that was actually working in the hotels. And one of my mom's very first jobs, I mean, she worked in the hotels and she made up the beds in the hotels. And that was her first job. One of her second jobs is she actually worked in a purse factory. For 8 hours a day, my mom stood in the assembly line. And as the purses came down the assembly line, she would reverse the purses and prepare them for stitching. Then she would go on to get her cosmetology license. But all the while, even though she had these very small and humble beginnings, even though her and my grandma, when she was still out back in Haiti, they pretty much slept outside in a foyer type area on ripped up pieces of cloth. That was pretty much their bed. And on nights that it rained, my mom explained to me how sometimes they had to just basically cuddle up and hold themselves underneath some type of shelter until it literally stopped raining because they didn't have a roof over their head. I mean, you're talking about somebody who came from small beginnings. And I'm telling you, that same woman who was willing to move forward in the midst of the small beginnings, that same woman who was willing to hold on to her goals and her dreams, that same woman who was willing to show up, as many of you know, that same woman, I'm telling you, that very same woman, I can tell you it was I don't know, maybe it was back in 2009 or 2007 or whatever, but that same woman literally turned down an offer on one of her commercial real estate properties, an offer in excess of $1.1 million. Are you listening to me? You have someone who literally came from the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, who came to this country with less than $150 to her name. After 22 years of putting in the time, effort, and energy, she ended up getting a piece of property, and later on, she would get an offer in excess of $1.1 million for that property and tell the person who made the offer to her, no, thank you. No, thank you. Never despise the days of small beginnings because you have no idea. I don't know what's in your bank account right now. I don't know how long you've been working on your business. I don't know how long this dream that you have has been in you. And I don't know if maybe sometimes you've been second guessing yourself. Maybe you don't know. Maybe you're saying, I don't know if I could write this book, or I don't know if I've got a bestseller in me. I don't know if I could become a speaker like you, Andy. I don't know if I could become this coach. I hear that, I hear I got this gift that I can sing, that I have this gift of creativity, but I don't know if I could break through. I don't know if I could make it happen. You don't understand. I don't have the resources. I don't have a bunch of people following me on Facebook. I don't have a big email list. I don't have money in my bank account. I don't have any special privileges and people that I know that can connect me with the right people. You don't need those things because I'm telling you right now that you can't underestimate the days of small beginnings. Oftentimes those small beginnings when you're just working out of the back of your trunk, those small beginnings when you're sleeping in your office, when your office serves as your office and your bedroom and your kitchen and everything else, those small beginnings when you're standing out of the corner and trying to get somebody on the corner of the street to buy your CD, those small beginnings when you're going door to door, those small beginnings when you start off just charging people about $25 an hour for your coaching services, those small beginnings when you end up having to go and get the book from the library because you don't even have enough money to buy the book. Those small beginnings can turn into big, massive dreams. Those small beginnings can come into really, really big realizations for you. And so I'm going to remind you one more time, never, ever underestimate the days of small beginnings. I'm telling you right now, I have, some of my coaching students, when I'm working with them and we're talking about them working on their actual product, and I'm encouraging them to actually develop and create a product, whatever it might be. And so sometimes in the middle of that, they say, well, Andy, well, listen, man, you've got all these things. I mean, you do VIP days, you do VIP half days, you have a monthly coaching program, you have a storytelling coaching package, you have the Speak Easy program, you have the ultimate storytelling blueprint, you have one-on-one coaching, you have a continuity program, you have a membership site. I mean, you have all these things, but you don't understand. I don't have anything yet, but here's what they don't realize. It wasn't always like that. I had to start off with one thing. My first product, not my first product ever, but my first product as a speaker, was literally 2 recordings of a message that you're listening right now. And so before this was also a live stream and just a conference call, it was a conference call. And all I did was take 2 messages that I delivered during the Thursday night Show Up for Your Life Motivational conference call. I got those 2 messages and I went ahead and had them edited, and I put those 2 messages on a CD and went ahead and had a design put on the actual outside of the CD, an actual CD. And most of you know what I'm talking about because you have that CD, right? You've bought that CD. That was my first product, a CD that I was selling for $20. That was it. That's what I had. That's what I started off. I didn't start off with the Inner Circle coaching program where people were paying, $10,000 and so forth. I didn't start off with a VIP day where people were paying $10,000. I didn't start off with that. I started off small and then eventually had to build from there. And so, Zig Ziglar said this. He said, you don't have to become great. You don't have to be great in order to get started. But in order to become great, you have to get started. And so understand this. If you're in the middle of some small beginnings right now, you've got most people beat. Why? Because most people don't even get started. Most people don't write the book. Most people don't even get the CD out. Most people don't even start the home-based business. Most people don't even decide to start exploring and getting the coaching and the mentorship and the things that are happening. They don't even have small beginnings to look at. They're going through life saying, what if I would have taken a chance? What if I would have started something? Or they're going through life just having a bunch of great conversation. And so at least you're doing something. Here's the beautiful thing about small beginnings. The key word is beginnings. That means you actually have started something. You can't have a beginning to something that has not started. And so when we talk about small beginnings, the key is you have to understand you have actually started. You started the book. You started the business. You started the relationship. You started the weight loss program. You started to develop your gifts, your skills, and your talents. The key is you started. And so don't you ever, ever despise small beginnings, because those small beginnings can turn into big dreams and take you to places that you wouldn't even imagine. Somebody said that, your gift, this gift that you're sitting on, if you would just start working on it, cultivating it, working on it, cultivating it, regardless of the circumstance, regardless of how small it is, that over time it will begin to grow, and over time it will start to open doors for you, and it'll allow you to start taking yourself to an entirely different level. I think about, my cousin, her name is Cindy, and I just remember the very first time when she got, someone turned her on to, that you can actually sell your books. And she just had 1 or 2 books that she had, and she wanted to get rid of them, and instead of throwing the books away, she said, let me go online and see if I could sell these books. And she just sold those little 2 books. And then she said, well, I didn't realize selling books that I actually made a little bit of a profit. And so she said, well, what if I go and get just a couple more books? And then so she would go to garage sales and penny sales of books, and she would buy those books, and then she'd go back online and sell the books. And so I remember when she just had a couple of books in the back seat of her car. And then I remember when she had a couple of books in the back seat of her car and then in the trunk area of her car. And then I remember when she just had a couple of books in her little 2-bedroom apartment right there in the little corner of the living room. And then I remember when it went from being in the corner of the living room to being about 1/3 of the living room. And then it went from being 1/3 of the living room to about half the living room. And then it got to the point when you came to her house, there was literally a trail that you could walk into the kitchen, walk into the bathroom, walk into her bedroom, walk into the other bedroom, and everywhere else was packs and literally books and books and books. It got to the point where she couldn't even invite people to her house, to her little apartment, because she was so embarrassed because there are so many books all over the place. So the only people who really went over there were true friends and family members, because she was in the middle of her small beginnings. And then I look at her now, when her and her husband have a warehouse that is about 4,000 square feet that has books that are sitting on pallets, that her and her husband right now, that they're living in a gated community in a beautiful home, that her and her husband right now have a multi-6-figure business in which they've built over the years selling what? Books. Why? Because she didn't judge the process during the time that she was in the middle of those small beginnings, because she didn't give up in the middle of those small beginnings. And so here's what I know right now. Some of you, as you're listening to me right now, you're in the middle of your small beginnings. You got this big dream. You want to take things to the next level. And so or you're starting a new process. You've grown a business, but now you're ready to take it to another level, or you're ready to pivot and go in another direction. And so what you're doing right now, you feel as if it's a small beginning in comparison to where you want to go. And so I know that that can be frustrating at times. And I know that there are times that you literally begin to judge the process. But here's what I'm trying to tell you. Here's what I need you to understand, that you don't want to ever despise the days of small beginnings, because oftentimes those small beginnings turn into big, massive goals and dreams. They turn into amazing things. You know, most of us right now, if you're listening to this message, you probably have a Facebook account. And so we look at Facebook and we think around, but you know what? Facebook really hasn't been around for all that long. I think Facebook started back in like 2004, Facebook started or so. And so I need you to remember that you just had a guy that was at Harvard that in his dorm room decided to call up a little meeting. Legend has it that he invited 5 people to come to the meeting to go ahead and come learn about this business or this idea that he had, that he was going to go ahead and launch this Facebook idea. He invited 5 people, according to legend, and 2 of them showed up. 2 of them who are still with this company today, Matthew and Dustin, both of which are billionaires. Are you listening to me? Billionaires. And that's a whole nother topic. Why? Because they decided to actually show up. But we forget Facebook right now, which is a $1 billion company, started where? In a dorm room, And so just imagine those who got invited to the meeting who said, oh man, I don't want to be involved with something. He's trying to get some people to come into his dorm room. Look at those small beginnings. And so sometimes we could judge the small beginnings, but we have no idea as to where those small beginnings are going to go. I'm going to tell you right now, Eduardo and Dustin are probably so happy that they actually showed up, that they actually decided to show up, because today they're billionaires because of it, all because they were willing to show up during those small beginnings. And so my question is for you, are you willing to show up right now during your small beginnings, as you work and develop your voice, as you work and develop your coaching abilities, as you work and develop the next stage of your business, as you go back and get the degree, as you start putting yourself in alignment with your goals and your dreams and the things that are you willing to embrace and deal with the small beginnings? And if you are, I want to share 3 things with you, and I want you to write these things down, because I really believe that they're essential, especially when we're talking about small beginnings, because I think that all too often we begin to judge the process during those small beginnings. So the first thing is that I want you to write down this. I want you to learn to appreciate the small beginnings, because let me tell you something. Most of the time, the grit that you build during the small beginnings, the resourcefulness that you have to turn to because you don't have all the resources that you need, the hustle that comes during those small beginnings, the drive, the hard work ethic that happens during the small beginnings, the initiative to get out there and talk to people and make things happen during the small beginnings. Oftentimes, that is the training period that often leads to your massive and your major success. If you did not develop and build those muscles during your small beginnings, if you didn't learn how to be persistent, if you didn't learn how to be resourceful, if you didn't learn how to lean in, if you didn't learn how to tune out the naysayers, if you didn't learn how to keep trying over and over and over and over again, most of the time you wouldn't be able to have success at the next level. So oftentimes the small beginnings, it's your training period. And so here's what I'm telling you: learn to appreciate the small beginnings. Now, here's another thing that I need you to understand: trust the process. And so understand this, that most overnight successes take 20 years. Most overnight successes, all the overnight successes you hear about, trust me, you just now are hearing about them. But most of the time, they were already putting in the work. They were already putting in the time. They were already working on their craft. They were already practicing. They were already making things long before you ever heard of them, long before they ever broke through. You just didn't know about it. They were in the middle of the storm, but they trusted the process. They believed that at some point they were going to make it through. They believed that at some point, that their time was going to come. They believed at some point they were going to make the right connection. They believed at some point they were going to grow the business and scale it. They believed at some point that they were going to master their craft, their skill, and their talent so that they could bring their gift to the world. And so you've got to trust the process. Absolutely make sure that you trust the process all throughout those very, very small beginnings, because I'm telling you right now that the majority of us, when we're in the middle of those small beginnings, that we literally start second guessing ourselves and wondering, oh my gosh, is this going to work out? And then here's the other thing. When you break through, and I know you will if you decide to stick to the process, don't ever forget your small beginnings, because that's where some of the best lessons are. And oftentimes that's what made it worth it. That's what builds you and molds you into who you are right now. Every once in a while, it's very sad to see somebody who breaks through. And unfortunately, they forget about their small beginnings. They forget that now this is their opportunity to create an opportunity for somebody else. They forget that this is an opportunity that at one point they had a hand out, and now they can go ahead and put a hand up and be able to pull somebody up. They forget that somebody else made phone calls for them. They forget that somebody else opened a door for them. And so I want to remind you to never, ever forget those small beginnings. And so here's one thing that I know for certain. If you're willing to keep pushing forward, if you won't judge the circumstances, if you continue to hold on to the dream and the vision and focus more on where you're going as opposed to where you are right now, focus more on the dream than you are your circumstances. And don't allow any of your setbacks and challenges to stop you, but rather be able to have not just eyesight, but tap into your mind sight, the capacity to see beyond your circumstances, beyond where you are right now. I'm telling you right now, those small beginnings can turn into some very big and amazing dreams. So I'm going to remind you one more time, never despise the days of those small beginnings, because oftentimes those small beginnings turn into some very big, big dreams. And I am certain if you continue to push forward, if you continue to make those things happen, these small beginnings that you're experiencing right now, that they're going to turn into some very big, massive dreams. You know, this wouldn't be Andy Henriquez if I didn't end by telling you this. Show up for your lives, ladies and gentlemen, because if you don't, nobody else will. All right. All right. Well, listen, I am just so grateful and thankful that you chose to tune in for the Show Up for Your Life motivational live stream as well as conference call. And so for those of you who are connecting with us for the very first time, I want you to go ahead and join us on our online community. So if for some reason you're not part of our online Facebook group, I want to invite you to open up another web browser and simply type in Show Up Group, showupgroup.com. When you type in showupgroup.com, it's going to direct you to our private group. Go ahead and send us a request to join the group, and we'll go ahead and approve that request. And we'd also like to get to know a little something about you as you join the group. So go ahead and make sure you go there right now. Go to showupgroup.com. We'd love to meet you, be able to put a face to who you are, maybe learn just a little bit about you. Now, for those of you who are watching via the live stream and you're saying, well, Andy, I know you're going to open up the lines and I'd love to interact with you. It's also going to be in that group, in the Show Up group. Open up a web browser, Show Up group, and join us over there. You can post your questions, comments, or feedback, and I'll make sure I give you a shout out right now during the live stream. Now, for those of you who, for one reason or another, you haven't connected with me yet, in other words, that you don't receive emails from me, I'm not sending you motivational message, tips, and strategies, I want you to go to showupforyourlife.com, and when you get there, you're going to see a banner. Just simply put in your name as well as your email address, and that's going to allow me to send you an instant motivational message, but it's also going to allow me to continue to provide you with resources and things that I believe is really going to put you in alignment to really be able to show up for your life. And then last but not least, I'm super excited because literally in just about another week or so, my wife and I are launching our 6-month coaching program. And so this is our third time opening enrollment. The 6-month coaching program, as you know, is 6 months. And so enrollment opens and then it closes for 6 months. And then it doesn't open again for another 6 months. So if you know that you have a business that you're looking to get off the ground to start, or you're in business, you're maybe looking to get to the next level, and you've been sort of spinning your wheels and trying to figure things out, and you know that you could really use some coaching, you like to be in a community of other like-minded individuals, you'd be able to get some strategies, and most importantly, be taken through a process that actually produces results, then let me tell you, you absolutely want to join us for the Make Your Move 6-month coaching program. Now, It's very simple for you to learn more about the coaching program. All you have to do is go to yourpowercouple.com. Once again, that is yourpowercouple.com. When you get there, there's going to be a very short, brief application that literally you'll be able to complete in probably about a minute to 2 minutes. You'll be able to complete the application. Go ahead and complete the application and submit it. And someone from our office will be in contact with you, and you will be scheduled for a very quick 15-minute call between you and myself, or you and my wife, Coach Cass, and we'll simply talk to you about what this 6-month coaching program looks like, to see if this is something that you'll be able to benefit from, and to see if you'll be joining us during the course of the next 6 months. Now, here's what I can tell you, that this 6-month coaching program, we've had some phenomenal success stories. We've had people who've come in the program who had a desire at the beginning of the program to write a book. By the time they were done, they wrote the book. They got their audio CD done. We have a couple people who had their businesses. They were sort of struggling. We had a realtor that was struggling. And by being in the program, being held accountable in the things that we shared, she literally had one of her best years ever last year in her real estate business. We have an interior designer that was in a place in her business where she wanted to scale it, love what she does, just wanted to take her business to the next level. And we're able to do a couple adjustments to her business to really be able to help her to increase her revenues by like 30% in her business. And so if you believe that you could benefit from some coaching and so forth, and you want to be part of this amazing coaching program, and you'd like to go through this journey with myself and my wife, Coach Cass, you're going to go to yourpowercouple.com. Once again, that